There's a lot of unknown out here. I think I kind of sort of have a grip of where we are entering college football 2025, but there's a lot. Like, for example, I just want to start with this. Clemson, expected to compete for the national title. Penn State, expected to compete for the national title. ACC favorites, Big Ten favorites or co-favorites. They've been sevens for a long time. Are they really nines? I mean, are they really capable of winning national championships? That's what I'm talking about. Because we have seen this before. The floor is very high with both of these teams. I see no crash and burn scenario with Clemson. I don't really see one with Penn State. In fact, I have a hard time seeing Penn State not make it the playoff, but no one up there just wants to make the playoff. And what a first world thing to be saying. I don't want to just make the playoff, but I see where you're coming from. I hear we'll be up at Penn State in the not-too-distant future, but that's just a rumor floating around here. I'm normally the last to find out about that stuff. But Penn State, Clemson, is it just pretty good again? Or are those wide receiver additions at Penn State really the thing that makes it go like that? They're not hurting for wide receivers at Clemson, but I seem to remember Louisville moving up and down the field on them, not being able to stop the run like they should, like Clemson should. So if they're a 7, that's good. That's solid. But that's not winning a national title. That's just making the playoffs. Are they 9+? Are they really? Is there something different about this year as opposed to the last few years? I don't know that. They can't know that. They can think that, but I don't know that until we get into the season. And Penn State may not have a murderer's row in the month of September, but Clemson's got some big ones, like immunity. That's back too. They've got LSU in town week 1. I think a couple of weeks later, Jesse, they go to Atlanta to play Georgia Tech. Look at that, week 3. That week 3 game, I don't know where we'll be yet because we haven't even named the name of the tour yet. But that week 3 game, I hear the snoring. Don't you guys sleep on that week 3 game. All right, so that's one thing. In the whole top to bottom or top to bottom of the second tier of the SEC, forget about Georgia for a second. Forget about Texas. Forget about Bama. Forget about LSU. As far as I can tell, looking left to right, everyone pretty much has them at or near the top of the odds board. FanDuel does as well. So tier 1 is fairly set. Now, I may have some minor disagreements with the order, but that's okay. That's why we'll do the JP poll. That's why we'll do season predictions. But past tier 1, normally we're not talking about championship contenders. But this does not profile as a normal year. And I think most of us are agreeing on that at least. So can South Carolina win the SEC? Can Texas A&M win the SEC? Can Auburn do it? Can OU do it? Can Florida do it? Can Tennessee do it? How many tier 2 teams in the SEC could reasonably jump up and grab the belt? For a long time, we lived in a world where it was just Alabama, or then it was just Alabama and Georgia. And then there would be Bama or Georgia, or maybe an LSU 2019 pops up. But by and large, it was like 1 or 2 teams, and you were trying to find a way for something to go wrong for those favorites in order for anyone to have a shot. Well, look, there's a world where Lenora Sellers just turns into Superman, or DJ Lagway does that, or John Mateer does that. What if A&M's just running the ball for 900 yards per game, and they're winning all the one-possession games? What if Josh Heupel just pulls off a total magic show with Joey Aguilar, we think, in Knoxville? My point is there is no elite team at the outset here, at least as far as I can tell. So that makes tier 2 on a rung of the ladder where they can reach the belt. Now, they got to extend fully. They may have to jump. They may have to get up on their tippy toes, but I think they can reach it. At least someone there can. Another unknown is the entire Big 12. What I do know is it's very entertaining. What I do know is I love it with all my heart. I think Brett Yormark is painfully off base on his playoff thoughts, but that's not what we're here to talk about tonight. What we're here to talk about tonight is, Arizona State brought back their entire staff. They could win it. Is Kansas State really going to be down 2 years in a row? Devin Dampier comes in at quarterback from New Mexico to Utah. Reuniting with an old offensive coordinator there. Kyle Whittingham, a guy who's averaged 10 wins per year the previous 4 years until last year. Might he have something to say about it? Sawyer Robertson at Baylor. They get Auburn week 1 on a Friday night. Iowa State, we open internationally in week 0, but we have Rocco Becht coming back along with, let's just say it, the best head coach in the Big 12 in Matt Campbell. So my point there is predicting this is insane. It's a total unknown. Everything's an unknown. I didn't even mention TCU. In any given period of talking about the Big 12, you're going to leave like 3 or 4 teams out that could win the thing. The Big 12 is such a beautiful thing. Deion in Colorado, this Big 12 is such a beautiful thing. So that's an unknown in and of itself. To drill down on a specific team, hey, wait just a second. I appreciate you guys watching. Most of you are subscribed. If you're not, please do so. It's free. It helps us keep the show free, and that's how we do college football year-round. All right, back to the video. What do you expect from Miami this year? I've been being asked that, so I'll ask all of you that. Because the one thing that I think we need to do a better job of on this campus here at Pate State is we need to make sure that if I'm going to get trashed for my predictions, which is totally fair and it is within your constitutional right, that you have to state your prediction up front. So I haven't even made a Miami prediction yet. But if you think Miami's going to be trashed this year, that's okay, but let me know in August. There's a comment section. It works here. I know it works here. So let me know in August. Everyone knows in December whether something went good or went bad, but they're an unknown. They're an unknown because Carson Beck's the quarterback there. They're an unknown because the offensive and defensive lines profile as the kind of lines of scrimmage that could land you in a national championship game. But no one's predicting Miami to go to the national title game. Half of you aren't even predicting them in the playoff. In fact, 3/4 of you aren't predicting them in the playoff. And that's because you either don't trust the coaching staff, you don't trust the quarterback, you don't trust the defense. And speaking of that, Corey Heatherman, year 1, are they going to make a quantum leap in defensive production? I think their personnel is a little bit better than what D'Anton Lynn had to work with when he got to USC or what Blake Baker had to work with when he got to LSU. But it's a total unknown, and they got a much more difficult schedule. For those of you who unfortunately and regrettably took an offseason, I haven't spoken to you about Miami's schedule. Miami's schedule is such that if they were to make the conference title game, that would be their 8th game in a row because the ACC has seen fit to give, I think, 3 of their teams both of their byes within a 15-day period. People say I'm not qualified to be the commissioner of this sport, but yet the people who are running the sport are putting schedules together like this. Listen to this. Miami plays Florida on the 20th of September, bye week. They play FSU October 4th, another bye week. They're done. No more bye weeks the rest of the year. Louisville, Stanford, at SMU, Cuse, NC State, at Virginia Tech, and at Pitt, back-to-back road games in cold weather late November for a team from South Florida to end the year. And if they make it through all that, and they're good enough to play in Charlotte, that is a 3rd consecutive game away from home, maybe in cold weather. Who knows what Charlotte has in store for you in December. But anyway, it's a much more difficult path to navigate with, I would say, more uncertainty this year. But that's what makes it an unknown. That's not necessarily what makes it a weakness. How far is the Tennessee drop-off? I'm in Nashville right now, and it is not couth around here to just assume there's going to be a drop-off. But I have turned over a new leaf this summer, and I am not doing glass half empty, but I'm trying to pour into the glass more realistic expectations. Because even though it's not true, people have accused us in the past of being a little too sunshine, a little too rainbow, a little too everyone can achieve it if they believe it. And you know what? I think Tennessee's going to take a step back this year. How big is the step back? So they were 10-2 last year. Their over-under win total is 8.5 right now. I bet the under on Tennessee, I think 2 months ago. Offensive line, running back, quarterback, defense. There's just a lot to backfill. There's a lot that's a great big question mark, and I don't really think anyone scripted it to go the way it's gone the last few months in Knoxville. Now, I have this whole dissertation that I issued before we went on break, which was I think Josh Heupel could go 8-4 and win this year, meaning that the intangibles and the 2026 and beyond sort of the prism could look good for him as long as they don't get blown out 4 times. But that's an unknown. Here's another good unknown. The coaches poll, I'm told came out the other day. I don't have a big interest in such things. The JP poll will come out later this week. I do have a vested interest in that. But for the sake of amusement, Jesse and Bradley tell me that this is the AP or the coaches poll right now. Texas was number 1. Ohio State, Penn State, LSU and Miami rounded out at 9 or 10. My unknown is how many of these top 10 preseason teams will have 2 losses or more by Halloween. Texas has got Ohio State and Florida on the road, as well as OU, neutral site, before Halloween. And so that is Arch Manning playing his three biggest games, his three biggest pre-Halloween games away from Austin. Could be 3-0 in those, could be 0-3 in those. Those are all losable games. Ohio State's got Texas, at Washington, and at Illinois. We think it's Julian Saying there, but we don't know. That's still a legit quarterback battle going on. Penn State, I don't think they'll have a couple of losses. Bama, let's see. Bama has to play at Penn State, Wisconsin, at Georgia, Tennessee, at Missouri, at South Carolina, guys. That is all before Halloween. This is very scary stuff. That's why we circled Halloween. Jesse, you got LSU schedule in there? Think about LSU. Think about all the pressure on Brian Kelly. Week 1, they've been allergic to winning games in week 1. But I'm told they found the cure. They're taking it seriously this time around. I say that mockingly because I am mocking it. They were always taking it seriously. You just got to execute better. That's the secret formula here. At Clemson, week 1. Got Florida a couple of weeks later at home. They go to Ole Miss. They got South Carolina. And they got A&M. You know what? They go to Vandy as well. I don't want to discount Vandy. There are like 3 or 4 losable games there for LSU before Halloween. So a lot of these teams, you can afford one loss. Like, obviously, it's college football. You got good on good. Someone's got to lose. But 2 losses before Halloween, that's not how you draw it up for a preseason top 10 team. I talked about the SEC Tier 2. What about the Big Ten Tier 2? Because it is a lot more clean cut in the Big Ten. Ohio State and Oregon and Penn State make up Tier 1. What is Tier 2? Michigan? I would assume people think Michigan is in Tier 2. I would assume, I don't want to assume you think USC is in Tier 2. Do you think USC is in Tier 2? I do, because I think it's just Michigan and Southern Cal and Iowa and Nebraska, Illinois is in here, Indiana is in here, Washington, Minnesota. Wisconsin and Michigan State should be in there if they're taking care of business, but they haven't been. Anyway, the story on this show, and has been for a few years with the Big Ten, has been, when is Tier 2 of the Big Ten going to be a presentable, formidable group of teams that could occasionally jump up into Tier 1? Because no one's done it. It's been like closed access. And that, I think, has been the big impetus for hiring more aggressively from multiples of those schools that I just referenced. But if that's the case this year, if Tier 2 is really ready to bite, then that means Illinois could beat Ohio State. That means Nebraska could do the same thing. That means Washington, I keep mentioning Ohio State. Washington gets Ohio State up there. The bigger upsets. The kind of stuff that really makes you feel competitive, balance, and parity has arrived to the Big Ten. Does that happen? And then I got to talk about Auburn for a second, too. It's tough trying to wade through all the rumors about how Jackson Arnold has looked in fall camp so far. I'll tell you how he's looked. It's been a very mixed bag. That's how Jackson Arnold has looked in fall camp so far. That shouldn't be a shock. It shouldn't be breaking news. In fact, it should be breaking news if he was either totally terrible or totally great so far. But the unknown is very obvious here. It is not the rest of the roster. If Jackson Arnold's B+ or better, the rest of the roster could solidly compete for a trip to Atlanta. Like Georgia goes in there early in the season. That's one of Georgia's tough road games. No one's looking at that game right now. If you're telling me Jackson Arnold's playing pretty high-level ball, if you're just telling me he's fulfilling on the expectation many people, me included, had for him out of high school, that's like a nightmare potential trap for Georgia no one's even talking about. I'm just using that game as an example. But if it's not going to work, then it's going to crash and burn at Auburn this year. And if it's not going to work, it's kind of like Oklahoma was last year. You could have good players elsewhere. In this case, you could have really good receiver room, or you could have good line of scrimmage talent. You could have a decent tailback. If that quarterback doesn't pan out, then they are a 5-loss team, 6-loss team. Season goes off the rails. Everyone's talking uncomfortably about Hugh Freeze. But the point with Auburn, as has been the case many times in the history of that program, is there is such a wild swing of variance in potential outcomes based on one person. It is the quarterback position in sports. That's the end-all, be-all about variance. But that is about as wild a swing as you get in college football this year. Is you tell me what Jackson Arnold's going to be, Not only could I tell you what Auburn's going to be, I could also tell you, you just fundamentally changed the SEC championship race. Because a lot of folks have to play them that aren't necessarily looking at it right now. You think Oklahoma is looking at that right now and they're scared of it? They just saw that quarterback leave. He's coming in there early in the season into Norman. We're going to be scared of Jackson Arnold. Well, what if they tap into something that you couldn't last year? Same thing. Talked about Georgia going in there. Talked about Bama going in there at the end of the year. Bama fans aren't worried about the Iron Bowl right now. Maybe you should be. Maybe you will be.